We accept the reality of the world with which we're presented. It's as simple as that.
We no longer live in a world of nations and ideologies, Mr. Beale. The world is a business, Mr. Beale.
Go on without me. Just go.
A good soldier never leaves a man behind.
Because I wouldn't give you 2 cents for all your fancy rules if behind them they didn't have a little bit of plain, ordinary, everyday kindness.
Life, finds a way.
Welcome to Silver Screen Biases. Each week we pick a movie off of IMDb's top 250 and dig into it. We're examining truth claims in critically acclaimed movies while also examining our own biases. I'm Nelson.
This is Jeff.
And this week we're joined by Cassy.
Hello.
The return of
Cassy. But also, we're joined by our youngest ever guest. How old is our youngest ever guest?
A month and a few days.
A month and a few days.
Yeah, that's going to be tough to beat.
Actually, I guess Sarah was pregnant.
I was also pregnant.
You were earlier along.
Yeah, I was.
Last time.
So okay. she was here before, technically.
Yeah, she was
the return of our.
She was our earlier in utero guest and post utero guest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got 2 for today.
So you might hear some baby noises in the background.
Yeah, she might chime in.
More than usual.
Yeah.
More than just Nelson and I's baby noises.
That's right.
I'll tell you, she had a lot of opinions about this movie. We watched it together, and she kind of cried a lot. I don't think she was a fan.
And what movie is that, Jeff?
Rear Window. 1954 Alfred Hitchcock Rear Window. Our second Alfred Hitchcock movie.
That's right. It's also 1 year from the release of our first.
Which was also a
Hitchcock.
Fred Hitchcock movie. Alfred Hitchcock
Psycho.
movie. Psycho, yes.
And one thing that this movie and that movie have in common, apart from Alfred Hitchcock, is they both had a remake in the 90s that was not well received.
That's right. Now, Psycho went on to have a TV series spinoff and all that. So there was multiple stuff that came from Psycho. This one just has the one so far. None of us have seen it, but
40% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah,
so.
They used a real handicapped person though in that movie.
That's
versus this one. Jimmy Stewart was not handicapped in the filming of this movie.
But who do they replace?
Christopher Reeves.
That's right.
Yeah, Superman.
America's Sweetheart.
Yeah. So and
that's actually a strange connection to the last movie we did, because The Godfather 1 and 2, the script for Christopher Reeve's Superman was written by Mario Puzo, who also wrote The Godfather, the book that became the movies.
That is indeed a fact.
It's a weird connection.
Yeah. Full circle.
6 degrees of Mario Puzo. 1 degree of Mario Puzo.
Anything we need before we get into the movie? Anything
we need to go over
There's quite a bit we need to discuss.
We have we have guest appearance questions for Cass. She's answered them before, but we're gonna put them to her again.
Reevaluate. This is your reevaluation.
See if
changed. Yeah.
Question 1: do you have no?
Nailed it.
What is, because we all have one, but what is your religious bias, Cassie?
All right. Well, I am a Jesus follower, same as last time. So I, structure my life centered on God and his son, Jesus, and I let that influence all of my decisions and thoughts and perspectives on the world.
How has parenting impacted that relationship? Or vice versa?
I find myself singing worship songs a little more frequently in my house because I don't know the words to any other songs. And so when I'm trying to lull her to sleep and think of something I know, that's usually what comes to mind. But it's good. I can kind of use that opportunity to praise in that moment. And usually when I'm singing is when she's not going to sleep, which is when I'm frustrated. So it's the best time to sing a worship song, I think, to kind of calm myself and reconnect a little bit.
And even when the baby won't fall asleep, you can still find a reason to praise.
Yeah.
That's a song we do in church sometimes. And what's your political bias? Last time you were here, unless I'm mistaken, you are largely politically apathetic.
Yes. Yeah. Politically agnostic, is that a word? I just don't sway too hard on any side or with any faction or anything. I will make political decisions based on the information in front of me, but not based on any groups or parties or specifics that way.
And how at all has parenting impacted that?
I don't think I've had the chance to be impacted by that yet. I'm sure it will, though, because I mean, there's going to be a lot more like political decisions involving children that I'm going to be more
Absolutely.
Considerate of in the future. Definitely.
Has anything changed with you? Third question.
Mhm.
Has anything changed with you when it comes to movies you've watched? Have you seen any movies recently since the last time we've talked that you've really enjoyed? Or
Okay, now this is why I got a Letterboxd account. So
here we go. Yes, preach.
And both Jeff and I, our Letterboxd accounts are
Follow
linked
us.
below.
Yes.
Jeff, I didn't get a response from the text message I sent you, but I believe
Still
it was
checks out so far.
Godfather. You had said that by the time that episode comes out, you would have updated your Letterboxd account to have reviews for all of the movies we've covered so far. Have you done that? By the time this episode comes out, will you have done that?
I got 2 weeks. Time will tell.
Listeners, let us know.
I did do some this evening, so
There you go.
I've been up to date, updating it as I've watched movies.
Sure.
So it's been part of my movie, even movies that we're not reviewing now.
Yeah.
I've gotten the habit of logging a movie just like I would calories when I'm on a diet, you know, like. But
Or
so I'm
morning
up to
bowel
date. I'm up
movements.
to date with recent movies. I have not gone back with the full 30 some movies that we watched and
This
got
is
all
the
of them.
37th.
Yes, it is. So yeah, but slowly I have added more as the days go by. Every time I work on podcast stuff, I do add a couple, but I have not done them all in one sitting.
I said 37th. It's kind of the 38th because available right now
The
on our
38th
Subscribe
parallel.
Star is Godfather Part 3.
Yes.
Behind a paywall. If you join on there, you can get monthly episodes from Jeff and I covering movies not on the top 250.
Yeah.
And your subscriptions there help us keep this show rolling.
Yeah. First couple episodes for Beyond the Payroll are going to be kind of catered by
That's
you
right.
and I. So we're doing Godfather to finish the
We
trilogy.
talked about that. We talked about that in the
Right.
Friday bonus episode. Go listen to
Right.
that if you haven't already.
Then you're going to get Nelson and I's favorite movie off the top 250 that has had huge influence on us.
That's right.
And then the fourth movie is hopefully a movie that's going to be connected to a current release coming out in December.
That's right.
So
That's right.
yeah. And then after that, subscribers will have the ability to pick
That's
our
right.
bonus movie every month. So we want you guys to get involved. So it's just another way we're all giving you an opportunity to help feed our children and get involved in the podcast.
That's right.
Right.
Cass?
Yes. Hi. Since having a baby, I've been watching a lot of television.
Yeah.
Although mostly TV shows because it has to be kind of like bite-sized,
Right.
easy on, easy off stuff.
That's fair.
But I have watched a few movies, especially when I had like my parents over helping out with the newborn. So the only 5-star one I've seen in the last month that I've loved is The Whale with Brendan Fraser.
Oh, yeah. I've heard good things.
Yeah.
I've not seen that yet.
I rated it 5 stars, but it was phenomenal. It was so good.
Do you think the people that we're trying to have him canceled for replacing actual fat actors are missing the point?
Probably. I mean, an actor is going to act like that's.
Apparently, only fat people can play fat people.
Well, I believe
and as a fat person, I'm all right with that.
it's like the thought behind Hamilton casting. I can't like the theory, that like you just pick the best actor for the role regardless of what they look like, and then they can play that role. So like what is there's like a specific term for it. Non-traditional casting?
It's the opposite of typecasting, right?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. Like, anyone can play any role.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a merit-based thing, right? If you're the right person for the job, you're the right person for the job.
If you have the best voice,
I mean,
if you
I
have the
think with
best
Hamilton,
performance.
they very much selected, we're going to pick the best black actor for this role.
Yeah.
For a lot of the cast.
I'm trying to remember some of the behind the scenes stuff. I remember like it just came around the people that was in. So because we're also talking about Broadway.
Oh, that's
it was
true.
never meant to be a movie.
Yeah.
And so like if you think about the whole Broadway Hamilton, the traveling team or the New York based team, like
Right.
they have different race cast members for.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
I didn't
so
know
it's
that.
not just
Okay.
a black.
Well, that's, I guess, my own bias there peeking through.
Lafayette is not always a black person. Sometimes it's a
In
white
fact,
person, an Asian
historically, he
person.
never was.
There's a good chance that's accurate. Yeah. So it was never wrote as a screenplay.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
It was a stage play,
Yeah.
stage
Production.
production. So when Lin-Manuel was writing it, he was writing it with people that he knew in his circles in his mind.
Okay.
People he had done Broadway stuff with before. A lot of the team was comprised of people. He had an improv troupe called Love.
Actually.
No, it's
Well, while you're thinking of that, we mentioned Broadway productions. And I only recently became aware of this, but Gaten Matarazzo, Dustin Henderson from Stranger Things, he's in a Broadway show of Sweeney Todd.
I
Sweeney
saw
Todd.
that.
He's supposed to be super good in it.
He's actually
who's Sweeney Todd in that one?
I was
Is
gonna
it
say it's another well-known actor. That's
Josh Groban.
yeah.
Groban.
Oh man, he would be so good.
Josh Groban's going to crush it regardless, but Gaten Matarazzo supposedly does really great in it, and he's probably my favorite in Stranger Things.
Is
I
it
mean, he's
Gaten
great,
or
yeah.
Gatton? Have I been saying it
Nobody
wrong this whole time?
knows.
It's not even him.
Yeah. Also, Joe Curie's Steve Harrington. What a great cast.
Freestyle Love Supreme. So Lin-Manuel was part of a freestyle improv group that was improv comedy, but all based around rap.
Yeah.
So Christopher Jackson,
David
Diggs, and the director, the director of Hamilton, the musical director, he was also a part of Freestyle Love Supreme. Okay. So when writing, he was just writing the most talented people for the stage production.
Yeah.
Wasn't necessarily going, then this is going to be a black character.
So here's
but
the thing.
It worked out for the message of the play and what he was trying to communicate. It worked out better having someone of a different race communicate it.
So I love merit-based casting, right? Pick the person that's going to be the best one for the job. Sometimes race does have to do with that. Sometimes race
can do something with it.
Yeah. Like in the case of Hamilton,
right?
The actors, like, there's only like a handful of white actors, 2 or 3, and I think that for part of the message being portrayed in that movie, they're better off having black cast.
Absolutely.
I assumed it was intentionally black cast, and that even if that were the case, it doesn't bother me, right? I love it when the best person for the job gets the job, and sometimes race does play a role there, gender does play a role there, but that's not why we're here.
Oh.
We're here to talk about Rear Window.
Rear Window.
How did we get on to...
I was talking about The Whale.
That's right. Demographics and casting.
No, we're still on Cassy talking about... So what other movies have you watched?
Okay. We watched The King of Staten Island recently.
Yeah.
Have you guys seen that?
Pete
Davidson.
I have not watched that yet.
I gave that one 4.5 stars.
Yeah.
I thought it was really, really good.
Yeah, Bill Burr's terrific in that.
I like Pete Davidson a lot. Especially now that he's with Kanye's ex.
No, he's not.
I thought they were together.
They were.
Oh, they broke up
a while ago.
Oh, man.
In fact, whoever he's with now, by the time this episode comes out, he won't be anymore.
Oh, man. Shoot. Anything else that you've watched?
Not that I've added to my diary.
Okay.
Yeah. The higher star ones.
Check Nelson and I out on Letterboxd. And also, if you're interested, check out Cassy. We'll have the link below. Cassie's Letterboxd as well. For the
right. I'm at SSB Nelson. Jeff is at SSB Nelson as well.
Yes.
We share an account.
It's mutual.
SSB Jeff.
SSB Jeff, yep.
Hefe. All right.
Rear Wind. Anything else we need to talk about before getting into this episode? Any house cleaning? Any letters? Any criticisms?
Yeah. So the text messages came to me after we recorded our most recent episode. So they hadn't had a chance to hear it because it wasn't published, and I didn't have a chance to see it, so I didn't make the episode. But yet more people had things to say to you about your take on guns.
Okay. Let them have it.
The biggest correction that came in, because I also got it wrong. This was a correction for both you and I. And as we said, we're not gun people.
Right.
I'm a gun rights person, but I couldn't tell you the difference between a hand grenade and a Glock.
I mean, I could tell the difference between those two.
You know more about guns than I do. Anyway, somebody said that you had made an assertion that AR-15s were military-style weapons, and the clarification that I got was that any military-issue weapon, this came from Connor, and I'm probably misrepresenting what he said because this is from memory, but any military-grade weaponry, civilians aren't allowed to own, military aren't allowed to bring home with them, nothing like that.
So no tanks.
Right. But not even just that, like military-grade firearms. Mm. So you had said you had family with military-grade weapons. And in that episode you had and
family?
Friends and family with military-grade weapons.
Friends, yes.
Friends and family.
Okay, friends. I didn't know if I had family members of military.
But this had been your claim.
No, none of them have military.
Connor had said, I find that very unlikely due to these things. It's more likely that he has friends and or family with like AR-15s and stuff. And again, AR, I think we talked about it in that episode. AR is not short for assault rifle.
Angry
Republicans.
Is it automatic?
No, it's Armalite, which is the manufacturer.
I'm not a gun person either.
Yeah. I knew that one. I knew a thing. but I couldn't tell you what an AR-15 looks like. If you showed me like AR-15, M16, and a couple of other rifles, I doubt I'd be able to tell you which one's which.
I'm not out to correct you on that. Nor am I out to convince anyone of what they should believe.
It's a good thing that you're not out to convince anybody, Jeff, because you didn't.
If people are listening to this,
that's a mean joke.
Yeah, if people are listening to our podcast hoping that I'm going to somehow just agree with everyone else, they're going to be sadly mistaken. I'm going to have different views than people.
That's good.
Yeah. 1954's Rear Window, Alfred Hitchcock. A little fun fact before we get into the movie. This movie released in the same year as of our Lord and Savior, On the Waterfront.
Oh, no way.
This came out the same year as On the Waterfront.
These movies feel completely different in not just like in tone.
No, On the Waterfront was on location.
White.
Rear Window was recorded on a set.
Yeah.
Everything you see in that movie from the perspective of Jeff's window was a stage set. Yeah. A studio set. Yeah. So it had a different feel. Yeah. But same year, came out same year. So both movies are commentaries of post Korean War, post World War II.
Yeah.
Or have commentaries in them of that stuff.
Sure.
Not necessarily specifically, but yeah. So I just thought that was it's for, a movie that we've done that's released in the same year. So
interesting.
The movie runs about an hour and 52 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
It's rated PG.
Mm-hmm.
And the notable cast, I only recognize 2 of the cast members. Correct me if you guys have any other cast members you've recognized, let me know. But James Stewart,
yep,
from movies that we've done, from It's a Wonderful Life,
yep,
and Grace Kelly, this is our first Grace Kelly movie.
Yeah,
it won't be our last.
I couldn't have told you a single thing about what she looks like. She's a stunning woman.
Yeah. Have you ever heard the song by Mika called Grace Kelly?
I have, linked below.
I knew that song before I knew who she was.
Yeah.
When I was looking at the stats of this movie and stuff and preparing to watch it, I was like, Grace Kelly, I wonder if that's who the song's about. And then I made that connection. So now my wife and I have been listening to that song all week.
It's a good song.
It's a great song. Mika's very interesting.
Pretty sure he's Canadian.
That would explain a lot. I thought I would assumed he was British. I looked that up.
There's no way of knowing.
Look that up, Nelson.
Look it up.
I'll dare you to look it up. But yeah, so I just, was there any other, now you've seen this multiple times, Cassie.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any other cast members that you recognize from other Hitchcock films or from any other films that you've seen that I'm not familiar with?
Not specifically. I mean, it's not a big cast anyway. Like, most of the people are just these little tiny characters. You don't really see their faces even.
It's true.
I mean, Hitchcock shows up for a
It's
second,
true.
like he
He's in
always
the
does.
piano room.
Yeah. But other than that, no.
Okay. And Nelson, did you notice any other cast members?
Well, I was going to bring up Hitchcock, but you guys already got to it.
Haha.
So I was very wrong. Mika was born in Beirut, Lebanon, and grew up in Paris and London. However, during COVID, he did quarantine in Canada for 2 weeks. So
hey, he's 2 weeks.
He's
Canadian.
basically Canadian.
Yeah, you spent 2 weeks in Canada. You're in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're really struggling to keep people.
Continuing with stats, this is 8.5 out of 10 on IMDb. It stands currently at number 52 in the top 250 and 98 tomato meter, 95 audience.
It debuted at 27 in 1996. By August 98, it was 11th. And it's slowly descended since to its current position. Cost about $1 million to make in 1954, which is about $11.5 million today. So a really not budget, but like low cost movie.
That makes sense. Like it's besides building the set, it's like you never leave the bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like
it's almost like a play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This would work really well on stage.
No, the entire movie is shot from the bedroom.
I was gonna say there's sometimes where you're looking out the window, and I'm trying to remember if you actually lose the view of the bedroom.
I think you do, but you get
but
it's still the angle from.
But you're still looking from.
I mean, spoilers, but the last shot, he's dropped out of the window. You see that happen.
That's true.
Point.
You do see him hanging.
Yeah,
you do see him hanging.
And when he gets to the ground, and she like helps him out and whatever. Yeah.
So
both his legs
90,
at least one scene not from the window.
% of this movie is from the view of the gentleman in the wheelchair.
Was from
L.B.
The View,
Jeffries,
the women's talk show.
Yes, Cassie, you've seen this. How many times would you say you've seen this? Just like, is this
probably 3 times?
Okay. Where would this rank when it comes to Alfred Hitchcock's movies for you?
Pretty high up there.
Okay.
I really enjoy this one for sure. I mean, this is up there with Psycho.
Mm. And what other ones? There's Dial M for Murder.
Birds.
Vertigo, North by Northwest.
Rebecca.
Not all of these are even on the top 250 though.
No, Birds isn't on the top 250.
Birds is not.
Birds
Rebecca
is not good.
And Dial M for Murder is.
Yeah, all the other ones we've mentioned so far.
Vertigo is. Yep. North by Northwest is.
Yep.
Nice.
And
Okay.
Rebecca.
I don't know anything about Rebecca. She sounds really nice.
I believe it's a romantic comedy.
Ooh la la. Ooh, really? He did other stuff besides.
Yep.
I mean, I wouldn't even
Horror?
consider this one a horror. I would say Psycho's the only horror, really.
And that,
Maybe Birds, but not a good horror.
I'll get into my just quick assessment, and then I'll go on. I'm curious to see what you think, Nelson, and then you, as the avid Hitchcock fan, we'll get into your opinion. First time watching this for me, I actually watched the ending twice, just because I was like, I like the way it escalated. But just to bounce off what you said, Cassie, I was expecting it to be more like edge of my seat.
Mm-hmm.
Really didn't have that.
Mm-mm.
It was more of like watching the game of Clue played out,
Yes.
more than it was like watching a slasher thriller.
It's a
Yeah.
suspense mystery.
Thriller.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
suspense was loose. Like the only time where I was like, "Oh crap, what's about to happen?" was when Grace Kelly she went into the room
Yeah.
to search the apartment of the bad guy. But I loved this movie. I was very impressed, and I very thoroughly enjoyed this movie.
Yeah. I didn't like the ending. I wanted the ending to be that Jimmy Stewart was a conspiracy theorist because he was bedridden. He was seeing things that weren't actually, or not that he was seeing things, but he was making connections that weren't there.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny because, like I said, this is at least the third time I've seen this movie. I couldn't remember whether he would actually
really?
been a murderer or not. I was like, it could really go either way. I don't remember
Yeah.
the ending. And I think it's because they make it so back and forth the
Yeah.
whole time. You're like, he's right, he's wrong, he's right, he's wrong, he's right. And so, like, there really is no conclusion until the last 1 minute or so of the movie.
Right.
Yeah, I really liked some of the dialogue that leaned into kind of some of the conspiracy stuff. So one of the big features in a good conspiracy theory is that it's unfalsifiable. And one of the things that came up is Lisa says to him, well, why didn't he draw the shades? If he killed this person, why are the shades open, right? And Jimmy Stewart, Jeff says, oh, he's just being clever. Right. The reason he didn't close the blinds is because that would be too suspicious, so he left the blinds open.
Yeah.
Because he's clever, and like that becomes an unfalsifiable thing, right?
Right.
Well, whether the blinds are open or closed is now incriminating. So
Okay, so you didn't like the ending, Nelson.
Didn't love the ending.
What did you feel about the whole movie though? Like
overall, I really liked it.
Yeah.
I really liked it.
any other moments or specific scenes that were like enjoyable?
The outside shot of Jeff's bedroom looks like Ross's
from Friends.
apartment from Friends.
Yeah.
And I wonder if Ross's apartment in Friends was an homage to that.
I thought of Friends when they kept showing the scene of the piano, how the guy in the piano,
Yeah.
the glass window. For some reason, that reminded me of Friends more. But I do get your reference as well too.
One thing that's really struck me from this movie is how much air conditioning has changed the social fabric of New York.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Because all these people knew each other just because they were seeing each other, hearing
Yeah.
each other constantly.
And the dialogue was, I've learned as I've started to watch more movies intentionally and stuff, like analyzing them, I've learned that like when there's big monologues, they're important. It's like just like the whole dialogue between the nurse and LB Jeffries
Yeah.
when he's getting oiled and stuff that first time, and just that.
There's some great
and-
lines in
yeah,
there.
there's, and we'll get into some of
Stella
those
is an
quotes.
absolute spitfire. I love
Oh,
her
yeah.
She's
character.
great.
Yeah.
And it did very, very much feel like a stage. This could have been on a stage.
Yeah, this would work great
could
as a play.
translate identically to stage drama, and it felt. I just love the way it made.
You know what?
me
I really
feel.
want to see this as a play, actually.
This would be great.
as a
I'm
play.
sure
Yeah.
it's been done,
Right.
right?
Sure.
I don't know.
I hope
Everything's
so.
been done.
This is
Yeah.
cool though. So Cassie, what
Uh-huh.
what are some of your favorite moments in this movie? Like what are some of the things that kind of continues to make Alfred Hitchcock one of your favorite directors?
Well, I mean, I think anyone who gets up there in my realm of favorite directors, like Miyazaki, it's all based on the visuals for me,
Mhm.
and just the way that he shoots every scene very intentionally to give you a feeling and to give you a visual metaphor of
Yeah.
what's going on. Like one of the first things that sticks out to me in this movie specifically is as he's looking out at all of the different windows, the way that every person is framed inside of their window frames is absolutely like a metaphor for television. Like they look like they are on
Yeah.
a TV screen. And I had to Google it when I was taking my notes or whatever, but TVs were like just becoming really popular at this point in time, like maybe like 10 years before, like it was getting to the point where everyone was having a TV. So it's really a commentary on this like spectating of people that are far away, that are disconnected, like viewing people more as characters rather than as individuals, and kind of seeing them through the lens of this television screen. But now he's like viewing his neighbors that way. And it's like just very visually apparent by the way that you see them walking through each like screen and the way that they're framed specifically. Like, I don't know. It looks like he's got like a whole wall of TVs like right outside his window.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought about that too. Like he's literally watching like, it's like when people watch 4 different football games at once.
Yeah.
Like they got 4 different things of entertainment going on at the same time. Yeah. No, I thought of that. Some of more of the topical things that we talk about before we get into some of the meat of this movie. They said the thing.
They said the thing.
They say
Who says it? Grace Kelly does.
Grace Kelly. Okay. Yeah,
Jeff says, I wonder if it's ethical to watch a man with binoculars and a long focused lens. Do you suppose it's ethical, even if you prove that he didn't commit a crime? And she says, I'm not much on Rear Window ethics.
Do you know if this was based on a book?
I did. I have it here. It's based on Cornell Woolrich's short story, It Had to Be Murder.
Oh, there you go.
Let's go back to that line real quick. I want to get your thoughts.
Just because I have no other topical stuff, so we can get into it deep.
Yeah. Do you suppose it's ethical to watch a man with binoculars and a long focused lens, even if you prove that he didn't commit a crime? So, Jeff, you're sitting in the privacy of your own home. From your home, you can see into the privacy of somebody else's. Is it okay to watch them? He didn't photograph them, didn't take any pictures, just watched.
My initial answer would be no, I don't think that's right. Because, like, I wouldn't want someone to do it to me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I guess I kind of lean back on the golden rule then. Like, would I be okay if someone did what we're describing to myself that I'm doing to someone else?
Right.
I would rather not have someone peeping Tom, even if their intentions are protection of the neighborhood, even if they are doing it with all the right
neighborhood watch.
Right. They're meaning zero harm, but they're still creeping. I'm still not okay with it. Actually, we've had a weird week this week.
Have we?
Just this morning. Have you missed the news this morning? So I feel, I don't know, this is just a coincidence, but it just so happens that we watched a movie about murder when we had another murder.
Oh dear.
Did we? I didn't know that.
Same place as the last murder. It was at 3:30 this morning.
This episode, heavily redacted.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is all public knowledge.
I know, but we're talking about where you live.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. Good point. So yeah, anyways, real quick, it happened at 3:30 this morning, and they didn't catch the guy till 10:30. Yeah, and the last.
What about you, Cassy? Have you ever killed an old lady?
No. Goodness.
Not that she would admit to. You're always welcome here, but I've got my questions.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I guess going back to your question, Nelson, whether they're being fully, in their minds, ethical and moral and protective of what they're trying to watch and peer into.
Yeah.
I don't need that. I'm not asking for that.
Sure.
So I would not put myself in that place where I find myself doing that. Now, I do enjoy going to the mall and people watching. I think that's a little different than watching them in their own natural habitat of the home. But like, I love going to like public places and just watching people walk by and just observing different
playgrounds and kids, that kind of thing.
No, most playgrounds I'm not allowed out anymore, but malls I'm allowed at public places still.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's just people are funny to watch.
People are funny to watch.
included. But yeah, so no. So to answer your question, no. That very long, short answer.
Mm-hmm.
No.
What are your thoughts, Cassie?
First of all, I hope this baby snoring is coming through the mic because it's really loud right now.
It sounds like a cat purring.
It does. Again, what I love about a good director is that they don't shove something down your throat. They give you all of the different sides of it. And and in this movie, absolutely, you see every side of that question from both angles too. You see Jeff, who like is on board with watching people. It's entertaining. It's helpful. Like he's totally for it. And then you see the nurse come in and she's completely against it. She's like, you're a peeping Tom. Everyone's a peeping Tom. Like we need to stop this in our culture. Everyone's getting to this like leering state. But then on the other side, the people see being watched, you see the different sides of, are they okay with it or are they not okay with it? Like you think about Miss Torso, she's on display. If you told her you were watching her through her window, she probably wouldn't care. Like she's like doing a dance, you know.
She lives on the stage, so she's used to it, wearing the exact same thing she's wearing in both places. So
and it's funny because if you look at a lot of commentaries for this, especially more modern ones, there's a lot of commentary on the male gaze towards Miss Torso. But like as you pointed out, like she's very much on display and entertaining a bunch of men that we find out are not the man she's with, because we meet him at the end of the movie.
And entertaining in a non-sexual way.
I think a little both.
Oh, I mean, a little. I mean, maybe not intentionally sexual on her part, but
Okay,
like,
but not in a. I never took it as like she had relations with any of those people, because like she was just meeting with those people, like dance instructors, maybe directors and stuff. Like I saw it as like she was performing for them to try to get ahead in her career. I never took it as any romantic past.
Well, she's kissing that older guy.
yeah, she definitely kissed one of the guys. No, and when she was entertaining 3 guys, she was kissing one of them out on the porch or something.
Older guy, yeah.
Okay, I may have missed.
Watch the movie a few more times, Jeff.
During that scene, we have Stella give the line of.
That's right.
No, it's Grace Kelly who gives the line. She's doing a woman's hardest job, juggling wolves.
Hmm.
You ever juggled wolves, Cassie?
I don't think I've ever seen a wolf. Well, okay, so Miss Torso, we can agree, is like on display. And if you knocked on her door and said, "Hey, I've been watching you through your window," she's like, "Okay, cool." I doubt she would care. But then you see like Miss Lonely Heart, who's doing a lot of very private, very emotional things. Like, I don't think she would want to be on display. She clearly has her window open, but is not intentionally like performing for anyone to seize her. And then you also see the married couple
when she's about to overdose on purpose.
And you see the married couple, the first time they come in, they obviously don't want an audience and they close their blind immediately. Yep. So you see people making decisions to have the windows open, to have the windows closed, to be in a performance state, or to do very private things. And so you as the viewer...
you have that one married couple sleeping out on the fire escape.
Yeah. And so you as the viewer, you have to decide, like, well, is it okay to watch some people and not others? Is it okay if they're okay with it? If I have some sort of permission, either that I am... interpreting, what's the word, assuming that they have given me permission, or whether it's literal permission, like, and in the terms of what we're dealing with in our society and our kind of like voyeurism that we see in our world is Facebook. And like people
and TikTok
agree to the terms and conditions on Facebook. They've decided they're making their life public. Therefore, they have a literal written agreement. It's okay for me to watch them and to see them and to download their photos. It's 100% okay for me to use any of your Facebook photos for anything I want, because you have put it on the internet for all the public to see.
That's right. Touching on voyeurism, our culture has even shifted even more towards exposition. TikTok is very much about, let me put a show on for a bunch of strangers. And a lot of people, like male, female, young, old, are very provocative with what they post on TikTok. So there's still that same kind of like, you're choosing to forego all your privacy.
Mm-hmm. You're writing it away.
Yeah. I think I come from a similar place than you with then similar place to you on this, Jeff.
Okay.
Which is that I don't think it's appropriate and stuff, but also that's why you have blinds on your windows, right?
Right.
And so, as Cassie was pointing out, all these people were, whether explicitly or implicitly, by not closing their blinds, giving consent to be seen to anybody that could see.
Right. Is it ethical? I don't know.
Yeah.
I still don't think that answers the question necessarily.
Yeah.
But have they given permission? It kind of seems like they have. Like they can see everyone. They know that everyone can see them.
And
it's patronizing to insinuate that Miss Torso couldn't have known that she was on display.
Right. Now, and we also when we meet the main character who's in the wheelchair, like
Hefe, we
also find that he's built his life around his eye being in a camera and
That's
stuff,
right.
and documenting life
and
of
watching,
other people's and stuff. Literally worked for Life magazine.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so like he's made a business, or he's made a life out of observing people.
Mm-hmm.
And so like if you're stuck in a place, you're going to do what you know best, whatever means possible. And he watched, instead of going to the Serengeti or the racetrack, he was just watching life unfold out his rear window. And so like he probably in his head didn't think he was doing anything wrong, because like that's what he gets paid for every time he'd leave the door any other day of the week.
Mm-hmm.
He obviously questioned the ethics of it, but
didn't make a decision.
I think if he were to answer yes on that, he probably would have had to question that a couple other times when he'd go work somewhere else with the camera.
Yeah.
Like there's probably been other times where he's probably maybe crossed that line if he thought what he did in his own home was a line.
Sure.
If he dug too deep, he'd probably feel guilty about other stuff he's done.
I don't know if this is federal or state law. Basically, once you're outside the four walls of your house, any picture taken of you doesn't require your consent.
Oh.
Yeah.
Then why do like places like churches and stuff like to have to have like, it's supposed to be stated in other places, like whether it's on the doors or something, it says like we document, like we may post your photo on social media. Like a lot of places are required to post
I don't
that
know
you're entering in a facility that,
yeah.
well, like, cause I know churches for sure do it. Well, maybe not every church does it, but they're supposed to
I
document.
don't know if it's legally
your face may be
required. I don't know if
photographed.
it's so much legally required as more of like a best practices type thing.
Okay.
Where is it at our church?
It's not.
Yeah.
I've seen it before at some
used to be.
churches or maybe at ours.
It
Okay.
used to be. And some churches will have like on a plaque right outside the sanctuary,
Yeah.
going into the sanctuary.
Sure.
So some will have them on the doors, like when the doors from the outside going
Yeah.
to the inside. Like it'll say, you coming in is consenting to being on, potentially being on camera, whether it's film or movement. Yeah. So just,
I wonder if the FBI tells people like that are in witness protection, sorry, you're not allowed to go to that church. That church has cameras.
I'll let you know when I'm under witness protection.
What are you
Except I
doing?
won't.
Because
Then-
I'll be the
'cause
one
you'll
that
be the one.
that you're ratting on. All right, I've got a handful of lines here, but before we get into some of the lines, I got this one that I want to go over. Not a line from the movie, more of an observation from the movie about the morbid fascination of a murder having happened. I know, Jeff, that you watch because we've discussed it before.
Yes.
Cassie, have you heard of or watched Only Murders in the Building?
Season 1.
You watched season 1?
I was very displeased with season 2 and I stopped.
I liked season 2.
Sorry.
And I'm enjoying season 3.
Well,
I
just
saw they were bringing in, isn't
just
Meryl
the one
Streep
episode.
too?
Meryl
Or something.
Streep,
I'm like,
Paul
I love
Rudd,
Meryl.
Rudd,
I don't know.
Rudd.
Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
that show is about, fascination of a murder having happened nearby. There is a really interesting aspect, I think, of this morbid curiosity about real crime and serial killers. The demographic audience for that, for the most part, is women. Like Law and Order SVU, most true crime podcasts, their demographic, who the advertising largely targets, is women. And
I'm a huge fan of SVU.
I can't watch SVU.
Detective Benson is my hero.
Cass, do you think there's anything to that observation, or am I mistaken? Do you think that there's any truth to women tend to be more fascinated by true crime, serial killers, that kind of thing?
I mean, like, I haven't read the studies on it. I know I am a woman and I find it interesting, but I think I have to check myself on it. It's almost like, it's not necessarily a guilty pleasure, but almost just like too much of a guilty pleasure of like, if I let myself fall into it, I don't need that kind of negative content in my life. But it's something that I could fall into very easily because I'm a big fan of, crime shows and stuff, and especially like Criminal Minds. I loved Criminal Minds.
Was that your favorite crime procedural?
Yes.
What was the name of the cute guy?
Spencer Reed?
Yeah.
He's so cute.
Lindsay-
And they didn't put him in the new. They tried to bring it back for a new season, but he's not in it. I'm like, you're kidding me? You don't think that's the only reason I watched that show is for Spencer
Lindsay
Reed?
wanted me to watch, and the moment I saw Reed's character, I'm like, this is why she likes this show.
He's so
She-
good.
That's the character she loves in everything.
Ugh.
Is that type of like the nerdy, like, I
Right.
appreciated it.
But the show overall, it's super interesting.
it's
And
a
I
very-
think
it's a very
it
cool
tackles the idea of murder in an interesting way because it gets like the psychology behind it and stuff. But the stuff that just kind of glorifies a serial killer or like glorifies murder in some way or like puts victims on display in a way that's very disrespectful or what's the word? Exploitative. Yeah. I need to not consume that because I'm against that kind of storytelling. And so even though it's appealing to me and I'm interested, I'm like, ooh, what happened? I don't want to support that medium because I think it's wrong to exploit victims and to take something that's so horrible and make it digestible in a content that people just easily listen to and watch. Yeah, so I have to be careful about that. I have watched or listened to podcasts, and sometimes I like the way that they handle them and sometimes I really, really don't. I feel like I'm going on a train here.
No, you're fine.
This is interesting.
Well, I think most people I know would, very easily fall into being interested in that. I don't know if it's a man-woman thing.
Yeah.
I've not ventured into murder or like unsolved mystery type murder podcasts and stuff like that. Have you ventured into that?
No, it was never really my bag. Jen got super into serial killers for a while. Was like reading up and learning about all these different serial killers. That made me a little uncomfortable. But and then she was super into SVU.
I don't think you've got anything to worry about.
No, I thought I was going to be replaced with more than anything. You've only killed 2 guys. That's not enough to be a serial killer. Both my last 2 Jeff co-hosts. Well, let's get into some quotes from this movie. There is that long exchange between Stella and Jeff at the beginning. Stella says, I should have been a gypsy fortune teller instead of an insurance company nurse. I got a nose for trouble. I can smell it 10 miles away. You heard of that market crash in 29? I predicted that. Just how did you do that, Stella? Oh, simple. I was a nursing director of General Motors. I was nursing a director of General Motors. Kidney ailment, they said. Nerves, I said. Then I asked myself, what's General Motors got to be nervous about? Overproduction, I says. Collapse. When General Motors has to go to the bathroom 10 times a day, the whole country is ready to let go. Stella, in economics, a kidney ailment has no relationship to the stock market. None whatsoever. It crashed, didn't it? So I just wanted to point out that in market type stuff, there are, especially like leading up to 29, we saw it again leading up in 08, we saw it again recently, there are a certain type of people who, when they're investing, they do what's called shorts. Let's say, for example, Jeff, you have stock in General Motors. You have no intention to...
I'm a BMW guy.
In 1928.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah,
1928, you own a bunch of General Motors stock. You have no intention of selling it. But I have a feeling, based on some of the medical condition of one of the directors of General Motors, that there's more going on there, and he's got some medical issues that just look like overstress. So I decided to short it. So I borrow from you a bunch of General Motors stock. I sell it at the current price. Then I buy it once it's come down, and I sell back to you at your original price that you didn't intend to sell. And I keep the excess. I keep the profit. Okay, that's called shorting. And there are a lot of people that when the market starts getting shorted a lot, you'll hear things like shorting is unpatriotic or shorting is pessimistic and things like that. It's a valuable part of the stock market function. If you can't short, if private investors can't short, then you have no, that's one of the checks and balances to monitor which businesses are overvalued. If a ton of people short GameStop all at the same time, for example, then that's showing that GameStop's probably not going to survive. And then if a bunch of smaller investors buy up a bunch of GameStop shares because they know it's overshorted, and so then when it comes due, all those big investors are going to be bankrupt, that's their right too.
If you're interested in that, watch the new movie Dumb Money coming out very shortly.
Yeah.
Is that about the GameStop thing?
Yeah.
Oh, fun. I'd watch that.
Seth Rogen.
Yep.
And Paul Dano.
That's right. I'm more interested in Paul Dano than Donkey
Paul Dano's
Kong.
great. Yeah. Anyways.
So yeah, in a free market, because he says, still in economics, kidney ailment has no relationship with the stock market whatsoever. He was wrong. And her instinct was good there. She's like, hey, this guy is otherwise healthy. Clearly he's just stressed out because of something happening at General Motors. I'm going to short General Motors stock. And she would have been a rich woman. And that's all I have to say about that.
I don't have anything to say about that specific quote, but when I heard that quote, it reminded me of Shia LaBeouf did a movie years ago.
Furry.
About
Transformers?
The
Even
guys,
Stevens
about the
movie.
furry guys.
Oh, that's a good one.
He
Transformers
was
is a
in
good
the
pull, too.
sequel to Wall Street.
Wolf of Wall Street?
No, just Wall Street.
Oh, with the gecko.
The gecko?
Yeah, hold on.
I think you're thinking of the Geico commercials.
I'm not. Gordon Gekko is the main character from the Wall
Okay.
Street film series.
Shia LaBeouf was in the sequel of that.
Yeah.
I've not watched either of these.
Wall Streets, plural.
But
Back
I
in the
watched an
habit.
interview with Shia
Big in the city.
talking about how he prepped for going into a movie about business finance and stuff.
Yeah.
And he had talked about how
He took a college prep class?
maybe, I don't know. But he talked about how he started investing in things and he started being able to watch trends and stuff. So he talked about how I forget the specific example he used, but he talked about essentially going if Chipotle's doing well, then he goes 3 steps away from Chipotle.
Yep.
And started supporting the farmers that are supporting. I don't know if that's a specific example, but that's the most I've ever learned about the stock market is from Shia LaBeouf's interview talking about him filming that movie.
That's
what I thought about when I heard that comment.
There's a really, really terrific scene. I've linked it below if I can find it. We've also linked below the Shia LaBeouf interview if we can find that. But there's a great scene from Silicon Valley, the first season, where this investor capital guy, he's having a really like, I think the character is supposed to have autism because he's having hyper focus like about this one thing. It's all he wants to talk about, and everybody's trying to get him to talk about this other thing. They all want to know, hey, are we going to have the money we need for this next thing that we're about to do? We need to know soon. And the whole time he's got somebody bringing him every menu item from Burger King so he can look at them. And he looks at all these menu items and he says, what do they all have in common? Sesame seeds. And sesame seeds largely come from such and such place, which just suffered a bunch of typhoon damage. So the cost of sesame seeds is going to skyrocket. And it's like, just a weird thing like that.
Yeah.
So check that out. Really great episode. Great show.
Silicon Valley's great.
Terrific show. So yeah, that's like, that is the way the stock market works. And so there are people that would have told Stella, hey, you can't do anything with that information. That's insider trading. And so there's all kinds of rules about who is allowed to make these shorts and stuff. But you want to know something interesting? The lawmakers, in their infinite wisdom, saw fit that the only people exempt that should really be exempt from insider trading laws, who do you think that'll be, Jeff?
The lawmakers.
That's correct. It is not illegal for senators.
I kind of assumed where you were going.
And that's why people with a what do they make a year? Like $100,000 a year is the average salary of a lawmaker, and they're raking in millions. And that just doesn't add up. Anyway, that's probably nothing. Let's move on. Cassie, do you have any insights from this movie? Anything that you want to talk about? Any lines or?
Yeah, definitely. Let's see. What theme should we go with here? I feel like we've kind of covered the whole spectating.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's definitely more to say there, and there's a lot of really good lines about it, like especially from the nurse.
Yeah.
She had one that said, "We've become a race of peeping Toms. What people ought to do is get out of their homes and look in for a change." And I liked that kind of reversal because, again, I think this movie is so relevant. Just I think Hitchcock like saw a theme happening with television, and that theme has only gotten stronger and stronger and stronger as culture has become more screen focused and definitely like voyeuristic, viewing from a distance, looking down on other people and watching them and taking interest in their lives. You know, they had a lot of conversations about these people, but they didn't give them names. They only gave them, you know, this one identifier, right? Miss Torso, Miss Lonely Heart. Like, what are they looking at? They're just seeing this one part of that person. And again, like our society has gotten even more into that with social media and stuff. We just project this like one image of ourselves and everyone else can just watch that one version of us. But again, the looking in thing. So like if you take a step back, if you look in, if you scroll through your own posts on whatever social media you're on, you know, what are you identifying yourself as? Or what is your one pseudonym that people will see you as? You know, like I just became a mom. So like right now it's all baby stuff. Is that what I'm going to be for the rest of my life? Is all my social media just going to be this baby from now on?
Yes.
No, it'll eventually turn into toddler stuff.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. You know, you just have this one identifier that you present to the world. So I thought that was a really insightful quote from her.
She was basically saying touch grass. Touch grass is things people say to each other on the internet if they feel like that person's inside too much.
This was the line in the movie that like took me to the most like spiritual aspect of the movie. Or like something that hit me within my faith and stuff. Like it was essentially like, you know, stop worrying about other planks and other eyes. There's a moment when we're required or allowed to step in and save someone, but don't go looking for those opportunities.
Yeah.
Don't go looking to find other people's drama. Don't go prying into other people's information. Look inside your own. Worry about the plank in your eye. Like for me, that was a convicting. Not that I find myself peeping Tom much outside of Facebook and Instagram. Like that, it was very like, you know, how often have I reevaluated my own situation?
Mm-hmm.
How often have I taken a step back and looked at our house versus looking at other homes and other families and comparing ourselves? And are we meeting the status quo as a family of three and stuff like that? That line really impacted me personally. Just like, wow, I need to go touch grass, you know, like I'm going to use that line now.
And visually, I think Hitchcock does a really good job of kind of making his point about this because I didn't notice this until the end of the movie when James Stewart or Jimmy Stewart?
Jimmy Stewart.
Okay. Where Jimmy Stewart is shot from a completely different angle than he has the whole rest of the movie.
Yeah.
Did you catch? I mean, it was jarring because you're like, oh, I haven't seen him from this angle, and it made me realize, like, every other time when you see the camera pan to the windows and then pan to him watching, it's filming him from a low angle, making him like this big and tall person, even though he's in a wheelchair. Like, he's kind of viewed as this like larger, greater than thou kind of imagery, right?
They film him looking down because
he's looking down on everyone. And then at the very end, when the guy is knocking on his door, all of a sudden he's confronted with this person. Instead of being viewed from a distance, the camera is now way above him and it's looking down on him, and he's small and he's fragile, and you can tell he's got broken leg. Like, he's clearly not able to defend himself. He's this tiny person. And so, like, very clearly makes the comment on, like, by watching other people from a distance, we view ourselves as like this higher person. We feel powerful, but like when you're face to face, you're nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. I have nothing to add to that.
Yeah,
that's a great insight.
Yeah,
I had a thought when the nurse and Jeff are talking. Her name's Stella, right?
Yeah.
Feel bad, the nurse. But when they're talking,
nurse.
And she starts like getting into like watching these people, and she goes, oh, what's this person doing? What's that person doing? They start making comments about like their lives and like discussing them and stuff. It made me think of this thing that I don't know if I saw it on a poster or in a magazine like years ago, but it's like this dumb quote that's I had to Google it. Like, what is this thought in my brain? It says, great minds discuss ideas, average minds discuss events, and small minds discuss people. Have you guys ever heard that?
Yeah, I have.
Okay.
I have not heard that.
It just came to my mind as I heard them talking, and I was like, gosh, it's so like gossipy, and it feels so small, and like just discussing these people's lives instead of talking about anything else in the world. I don't know. It just feels like in the movie it was framed as entertainment, like simple entertainment. I don't know. How do you guys feel about like the way that gossiping and talking about people was framed?
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting because clearly they all thought themselves better than it. Because even Jimmy Stewart, who's watching his torso, when Doyle comes over and Doyle's watching his torso, he's like, how's your wife? And so it's funny how they all of them see it as a, not even a vice, but like a guilty pleasure. Like, they can't help themselves but look.
I thought it was interesting too that all the people that came into LB Jeffries' house, apartment or whatever, they all had their own way of kind of making assumptions too as they walked in, even not out the window, but on LB. Like the second time or the third time the detective came in and he saw
Lisa.
Grace, there it is, Grace Kelly's character, Lisa, her overnight bag. He immediately had assumptions or judgments. The nurse, Stella, she always had something to say about how LB was handling his current situation. And then obviously Kelly she always had thoughts about like, you could do this, you could go to these fancy, like these critiques, like, so like everyone coming into his house was also putting him under the radar, just as he was putting other people under the radar outside the house. So I thought there was a nice compare and contrast of people inside his house versus the people he was watching outside the house.
Sure.
Everyone was critical of everyone.
Sure.
And it was just, he's like, no one was free of it, which going back to the gossip idea, like, I think that, you know, like that just kind of giving the assumption, like we're all guilty of it. Like whether we're intentional about it, like what's the gossip, what's the tea, or a lot of us do it. Maybe not even realizing we're doing it.
Yeah.
Speaking of Nelson, did you know that, no, I'm just kidding.
Something I've been meaning to talk to you about. Couldn't find it in the transcript or anything, but one of Stella's last lines, if not her last line in the movie, she's talking to the police officer and he asks if she would like to go with them to find one of the body parts or something like that.
To see what was in the hat box.
To see what was in the hat box. And she says, oh no, I wouldn't want to involve myself. And then immediately gives him like this look of like, oh crap, I guess I have involved myself like a lot. And it kind of goes back to like her arc in the movie. Like at first she's condemning the behavior, then she joins the behavior, then she becomes super involved.
And then obviously aware of her involvement. And
one of my favorite lines in this movie is like Stella has, I think, almost all of my favorite lines.
She was probably my favorite character.
And one of the ones she has is in the opening dialogue between her and Jeff, because she's pushing him to get married, to marry Lisa.
Lisa.
And he says that he's not ready because, you know, he wants
She's too perfect.
Yeah, and also, he's just given all kinds of excuses. And one of the excuses that he gives was that he wanted to develop himself more. He's not ready for marriage. And she said, and I love this line, when I married Miles, we were a couple of maladjusted misfits. we're still maladjusted misfits, and we have loved every minute of it. And like I'm always encouraging people, get married, have kids. You're not ready for it. You're never going to be ready. Those things you can figure out. If you wait until when you're ready, it's going to be too late.
So I think this movie had a ton of ideas on marriage that they pushed. And I wrote down a ton of quotes as well, because like everyone had their own opinion about marriage and like what marriage is. And even as they were observing the people in the windows, you could kind of see examples of different kinds of marriages that were happening. And still, it kind of felt like there was really one perspective of marriage that was being pushed, which is almost like that stereotypical like nagging wife, unhappy husband, like, you know, a husband who wishes for more, who's unhappy in his marriage, like, oh, you're getting tied down when you get married, right? That seemed to be like the idea of it. And even
that was Jeff's opinion of marriage anyway.
Well, him and just the way that everyone was framed, like obviously the guy that murdered his wife like was being tied down in a way.
Yeah.
You could tell that the newlywed couple, when they goes out for like a smoke or whatever and she calls him back in, he has like this kind of disdain on his face when he goes back to see his new wife.
Okay. That's not what I saw there.
Really?
Yeah.
He looked unhappy to me when he called him back.
I think that these are newlyweds and he's tired. I think she's wearing him out.
I could also see that side of it. I really went back and forth between those two views of it, but it looked, I mean, he was tired, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
Tired from what?
They're newlyweds.
Yeah. Okay, but then there's a quote from Stella who says that every man is ready for marriage when the right girl comes along.
Yeah.
That is something that I feel like is pushed in almost every Hollywood movie I see, is the idea of this right person. And once that one fit comes, everything works out.
Right.
And like, that's one of my biggest
pet
peeves, sure, with movies and the way that marriage is portrayed is this idea of like, find the right person, everything is perfect. Sure. And like, that is not at all how it works. And I don't think that the right person makes someone ready for marriage.
Oh, yeah.
I think that, someone is ready for marriage because they themselves have brought themselves to the mental and the environmental state of being ready to join lives with another person. Like it takes mental, spiritual commitment, as well as like being in a position in your life where you're ready to join.
I absolutely agree with you. The only pushback I'd give with that is I do feel like, though, sometimes people that come into our lives, we have different reactions to. So not me personally. I'm trying to think if I can think of someone. I know some people that weren't thinking of marriage until they did meet someone.
Right.
So like, I think it can be the flip, but that should not be what our expectations are. But I think someone can bring up the idea of marriage for the first time and go, oh yeah, that's great. It's a great idea.
Yeah.
Didn't think about that. Any other relationships I had. But I absolutely agree with you. Like, that shouldn't be what we're waiting for.
And the big issue I have with that claim, like, yes, a person can make a difference. Like, when you meet a person who you want to spend the rest of your life with, like, that makes a difference in the way that you view marriage and your perspective you have on it. But if your idea is that this right person is the reason why I want to be married, and then later on marriage gets hard, the conclusion is not, I'm bad at marriage. The conclusion is, oh, it's the wrong person.
Right.
So you end the marriage and you go find the right person because clearly you were wrong the first time. And having that perspective is why there's so much divorce in the world. And like, I hate Hollywood's view of it. I do.
I don't know. I again, because of who it was saying the line, that's not what I got from that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I loved that line. I thought it was great. And I typically get really frustrated with any kind of soulmate type talk.
Okay.
I typically hate that kind of stuff because you and we've talked about this a bunch of times. Like, I'm totally on board that marriage is work, and if you're not willing to do the work, you're going to have an unhappy marriage. And your marriage isn't unhappy because you married the wrong person. It's because one or both of you aren't putting in the effort.
Mm-hmm.
With that line, though, because we already had the clarification from her, when I married Miles, we were a couple of maladjusted misfits. We're still maladjusted misfits, and we love every minute of it. That's somebody that's still very much, obviously, trying to have a good marriage. Because that doesn't happen by accident, right? You don't, even though you're maladjusted misfits, love every minute of it. That doesn't happen on its own. That takes work.
There's some self-awareness.
And so I think she has a view of marriage that Jeff doesn't share. And so when she says every man is ready for marriage when the right person comes along, I think she is being dismissive of his "I'm not ready" comment. I think what she's saying is, yeah, that's what you say, but that's just because that she's not the woman that you want to marry. And that when the woman that comes along that you want to marry will come along, suddenly you'll be ready for marriage. And like, I've known guys that like, I don't think I'll ever get married. And then like a month later, they're like, I think I'm going to propose.
I found the one.
Right? And I also disagree with the one. But
yeah, I'm working on my second right now.
But the... have you told your first yet?
She... In due time, Nelson. She doesn't listen to this, so I'm good. This is a safe space.
She's going to love this. This will be her first episode listening.
Jeffrey! Crap.
So that's what I took away from the scene. But if it had been a soulmate type conversation, I hate that stuff. I remember when Jen and I had first met, I went on a rant one point.
Love at first sight?
No, I went on a rant about how chemistry and the spark and all that stuff, like, it's fake. It's not real. And you can simulate that stuff. And it's not like the bedrock of a relationship. Like, that's not going to work.
Right. So. No, it's not bad. Well, okay. So, like, it feels like Lisa's motivation throughout almost the entire movie was to make herself appear to be what he wanted.
Yeah.
And so, like, when they were having a discussion and he was like, oh, you're not this, you're not that, she was like, I'll show you, I'll be this, I'll be that. And that gave me, like, Grease vibes, which I hate the ending of Grease, of like, oh, change yourself to get the man.
I love that movie. And it's got such a bad message.
Oh, my gosh. And even like, I don't know.
Terrible message. Yeah. Awesome movie.
And it felt like that because, like, even the conclusion of this movie, it feels like he's finally accepted her because she has changed herself to be what he wanted. And then she's got the book. You pick up the book thing at the end? Yeah. And she's got this travel book she's reading, and then he's asleep, so she puts it down and opens a magazine. Like, if you can't be yourself around the person you want to be with.
In defense of Grease, they are just supposed to be high schoolers. So just because they're
30-year-old high schoolers,
just because they're graduating does not mean that they're mature enough to fully understand their identity yet.
Yeah.
So I enjoy Grease. I think it's a great movie.
Oh, I love Grease. I love the movie overall.
Never bothered me to that fact, but I have thought about that fact of like, so they just changed. They're also high school. They're also supposed to be high schoolers.
I'm definitely with you on Grease. I don't know if I'm with you on this one though. Again,
I just don't think that should be the beginning of a relationship.
I agree. I absolutely agree. But I think part of what was happening there, I don't think it was her saying, I can be that stuff.
Okay.
I think she's saying, I am.
And you're not seeing it.
You're not seeing it. And you're about to see it. And then even with like the switching magazines, like, I mean, all three of us, we're in healthy relationships. We do things for our spouses, even hobby type stuff that otherwise we really wouldn't be interested in. If they hadn't introduced us or they didn't want us to engage with it, we probably wouldn't be doing it.
Yeah, that's true.
But I wouldn't hide my true interests.
No.
And I didn't like the hiding. I didn't like that was the last scene you saw her in. I was like, ugh.
Yeah. There's very 1950s notions about relationships and that kind of stuff. I thought it's interesting that she's this very powerful model woman, and she's coming home and cooking dinner for her wheelchair-ridden boyfriend.
Yeah, she definitely seemed too good for him.
Yeah, she was doting on him.
Not sure what she saw in him.
Yeah. I really liked the line when he basically says, like, that he won't be marrying her. She's like, all right, well, good night. And she goes to leave. He's like, wait, what? That's it? He's like, can't we keep things status quo? And she says, without any future? And she leaves. And I was like, I really wanted that to be the end of her in the movie. Because, like, that, I feel like that's a much more woman's empowerment thing. Is like, you know what you're looking for in a relationship.
Yeah.
And, like, oh, this guy's really not looking for a dedicated relationship? Okay, keep looking.
I would have much preferred her to just exit there. Because what was even worse was that, well, when will I see you again?
Probably tomorrow night.
And she goes, not for a long time. Or at least tomorrow night.
I thought that was really funny.
Gosh.
I thought that was, their relationship, it's like, I thought it was really cute, but also some of that stuff did frustrate me.
Mm-hmm. It seems like he's not really bringing anything to the table. He's like, I want you to be this.
He is stuck in a wheelchair.
Was that all intentional?
If you're at home and in a wheelchair, know that you're bringing nothing to the relationship.
Was that all intentional, though, for Alfred's story?
Huh?
Was everything we're discussing right now, like, was that intentional for what Alfred Hitchcock was trying to communicate within this story?
Mm.
You know, like, or do you think we're kind of getting a glimpse of, like, an aspect of how Alfred Hitchcock views.
Yeah, and
relationships
even her
stuff.
making him dinner, like, is she making him dinner because she's the kind of woman that makes dinner, or is she making him dinner because it was culturally expected, or is it
She
just because
was
he's in a wheelchair?
25 when she filmed this movie.
How old was he?
I actually didn't look that up.
It's impossible to know.
I wouldn't say it's impossible, but she was 25 filming this. And I guess Alfred has a trope of having an older gentleman with a younger girl in a lot of his movies.
I think so.
I mean, in Psycho, the lady was literally an old dead lady and a younger man. So I mean, there was an age difference there.
I don't know if that was the romantic core of that movie.
I just wanted to recall.
Well,
that.
I mean, yeah, I think Jeff is not a
About
sympathetic
45.
character.
So 20-year difference.
Jimmy Stewart was about 45 there.
Fine.
Yeah, I don't think Jeff was a sympathetic or is a sympathetic character. Jeff, I don't find you to be a sympathetic character.
Oh, how about now?
All right, here's a line that, since we have a woman in the room, I want to get your read on.
Okay.
This never goes well.
2 women, by the way.
Yeah, Jeff, feel free to weigh in.
I'm talking about my baby, just to
You're
clarify.
in my house,
Goodness.
guys.
That female intuition does well in
I loved
magazines,
that
but
one.
it's a fairy tale.
Yep.
What do you think?
I think classifying something as female intuition just has a bad ring to it.
Mhm.
I don't see how female intuition is different than male intuition
Do you
versus
Males
just
don't have
human
intuition.
intuition. Like,
Do you think that either gender has a greater aptitude for intuition?
I think it's just like based on your experiences as a human, you might have more intuition into similar experiences of other humans. So by being a woman, sure, I might understand other women better, but like it's not because I'm a woman that I have intuition. It's because I have experience in my life that may be similar to their experience. But it's still her claim of like, oh, a woman would never leave her jewelry at home. Oh, a woman would never leave her favorite purse or something like that. I'm like, well, maybe they would.
Yeah.
I wouldn't make that assumption on all of women everywhere. I don't know. So I don't know. The line I thought was fun to kind of dissect and stuff, but I just think it fits into that same idea that I was saying before of this trope of nagging wife, women in the kitchen kind of
Oh, that's what I was going to say with the nagging
situation.
wife line. Because when the nagging wife line comes up, the person on the other end of the phone clearly is telling Jeff that's just a trope. That's not the way people really are. And Jeff says something to the effect of, well, where I live, it's still a thing. Because that's what he's watching.
Right.
That couple.
Always watching you, Mr. Mazowski.
Yeah, I thought the line was really interesting because, like, on the one hand, I don't see female intuition as being a misogynist phrase. And there's a way of looking at this line that it is misogynist to say female intuition does well in magazines, but it's a fairy tale. But at the same time, like it can also be seen as egalitarian, depending on what he means by this.
It just seems so dismissive to say female intuition.
Sure. Well, but that's the line she'd used. That was the term she'd used.
Is
for
it?
Yeah.
I might have missed that.
She'd used it a couple times already. And so I don't know. I thought it was. I couldn't tell from the scene if he's being misogynist, or if he's saying intuition isn't enough, or like female intuition as an idea is just. And also keep in mind, this whole movie, Jeff also has been going with his gut, and he's being dismissive
I
of Jeff.
always
on
go
it.
with my gut, guys.
It's true.
Well, I mean, I think from the detective's point of view, he did everything right. I mean,
he followed the rules.
I think they didn't have a lick of evidence this entire time. I don't think anything they got was like.
And they kept trying to get him to violate the law to get them some evidence.
Yeah, no, I think like he was right to dismiss pretty much everything they were saying.
Yeah.
No, this may be a little petty, but get your take on this. Lisa's whole the moment she becomes enthralled in this whole situation was when she found out about the wedding ring or the jewelry, right? That was her reason for going from.
That's when she started
believer
believing
to
it was a
not-
murder.
Right.
Yeah.
Now this is the 50s.
Mm-hmm.
As someone who, in my 11 years of marriage, have not worn my wedding ring the whole time for sometimes safety reasons because I've worked in a factory.
I wore one for less than 6 months.
For some
and I
time,
lost it and got a tattoo.
for sometimes it was health reasons because I got fat, then I got skinny, then I got fat again, and my rings didn't fit, and we just didn't buy new ones.
And the same thing happened to me, but I call it pregnancy.
That's safe. That's safe. Yeah, I think there's also like this is a period piece, in the sense of like it's capturing a moment of time in the 50s.
Yeah.
This movie didn't take place It was filmed in the 50s and it took place in the 50s.
Yep.
Like it was, I think nowadays, if an argument was brought down just on the linchpin of a wedding ring, I think there would be no reason to like go like, oh, she forgot her wedding ring. Well, that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
She must be dead.
Like, right. It's like, I found that just mildly entertaining of like, that hasn't aged well specifically. Just because
Sure.
like my views of marriage are very important to me. My views of my dedication to my wife, very important. My views to my specific ring and how often that I forget or didn't wear when I worked at the factory and stuff like that. Like that was less important to me than the fact that I was actually married and I was faithful to my wife. I just thought that was interesting. Like her whole linchpin was she would not have left without her ring. I just found that fascinating.
Yeah.
This could be very minor, but
Well, also
I just-
could be a door opening into her mind, because what is she most focused on more than anything right now?
getting a ring.
Getting Jeff to commit. So maybe she was reading her own biases.
That's true.
into
That's
it.
true. Her own,
Silver screen biases. That's it, folks. We did it.
See you next week.
All right, I got another one for you here, and Jeff, I don't think you're gonna like this one.
How's it guns again? Oh, gosh.
Sorta.
Go on.
So, not you, Jeff, but the other one, the one in the movie, is telling Detective Doyle, like part of his circumstantial evidence is that the other guy had a knife and a saw.
Mm.
And Doyle says, "You ever own a saw?"
We need more knife and saw regulations.
That's right. We need some common sense knife control.
Yeah.
He says, "You ever own a saw?" And Jeff says, "Yeah, at my last house, there's one in the shed." He says, "How many people did you carve up with it?" And I think that there's a really obvious allegory there to one of the pieces of rhetoric we hear in the gun debate today, is that there is this paranoia that once people take Chekhov's gun and apply it to the real world. Chekhov's gun is that if a gun shows up in a scene in a movie, it's going to be used in that scene, or it's going to go off before the end
I've
of the
not
play.
heard this before.
Chekhov's gun?
Oh, really?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
Chekhov's gun was, I think I've gotten it a little bit wrong, but I'm pretty sure Chekhov's gun is like they introduced the gun in Act 1, it's going to go off in Act 3.
Yes.
And,
Confirm. Second opinion on that.
And so people treat guns in the real world kind of like Chekhov's guns, like that it immediately becomes a more dangerous situation. In this particular situation, it was exactly that. Like the saw was used to carve up a body.
It was.
But how many people own saws that they've never used to carve up a body?
Well,
It's got to be at least 3.
I'm not anti-saw, Nelson.
Yeah, just common sense saw
right.
regulation.
And
You're not. You don't come to the same place as me on the Second Amendment. Good night, folks.
Oh my gosh. No, I get that. I do. I would agree with you in this, Nelson. Let me clearly say I agree with you, Nelson. And this,
Feels good.
like, and then like it is a good depiction of just saying like just because they have it doesn't mean that's what it's used for. Like,
Right.
And it's like, yeah, I picked up on that. I assumed that this was going to come up in the episode. Yeah, no, I think there is more to talk about within that specific dialogue, and just the weapons debate, not even the gun debate, but just the weapons debate in general. Like, and that could even go in the drugs debate too. I mean, we saw drugs as a weapon, drugs as self-harm. We saw that in this movie as well. Like,
Absolutely.
just this idea of like, just because they have it doesn't mean they use it. Well, in this movie, yeah, they are that, but that's not every household. And I think that's what that is establishing that. And I would agree with your commentary on that. Yeah.
A little unrelated. It did bug me that they didn't call the police for Miss Lonely Heart.
They were about to. Then it
did.
escalated, and so they just changed the subject
The
from
whole
her to
time
him.
when she was freaking out in his apartment, I was like, but what about the lady who's like about to kill herself? Like, take care of her too.
Right.
You want to know the crazy
Oh my
thing
gosh.
too? When I was watching the movie, I was following along with the transcript. The transcript doesn't have like the last 5 minutes of the movie in it. And so when I was trying to find that,
So the rest of it was just improvised.
no. And so when I was trying to find the line that Stella says about how she doesn't want to implicate herself, I went and pulled the script. And the difference between the script and the transcript is that the script is what the director, cameraman, and actors are working from, but then changes get made. And that's what the final film is.
Yeah.
Whereas the transcript is taking
changes
the lines as spoken and writing them down.
Yeah.
In the original script, it's not Miss Lonely Heart that ends up with the pianist, it's Miss Torso.
Oh, that is interesting.
She says to the
That
pianist,
is
I love your
interesting.
music. And he's like, well, come on up. And that's like their last lines.
So in the original, what happens to Miss Lonely Heart?
Hopefully she dies. Also, the Doyles have to fire that babysitter. Hey, can I speak to Detective Doyle? He's not in. This is the babysitter. I believe they're at a movie and then going to a club, and they might be back later. Can you have him call me back? Who's this? Do they have your number? Like, lady, no. If you're babysitting, you don't answer the phone.
Really?
Yeah.
I guess that's fair. Maybe back then it was different.
That was the only line of communication back then. So like,
when I was a kid,
How does she know it's not the Doyle calling?
That's right, calling from the.
When
the
I was a
restaurant.
babysitter as a kid
In the 50s.
This was before cell phones in the 1950s. It was like here's a list of emergency contacts. And if you need it, I will be back at this time. I was never given. I was almost always told, don't answer the phone, because hypothetical situation. Jeff, let's say that you're babysitting. You're 12.
Oh, nuts.
You're babysitting Cassie's newborn daughter. And I'm a ne'er-do-well. I call up to Cassie's house. And you're like, oh, they're not here right now. This is their babysitter. I know it's going to be really easy to rob that house.
Well, you'd have to go through the babysitter. I mean, geez.
Well, he's 12.
Have you ever watched Home Alone?
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
What are you doing to this 12-year-old?
He took down 2 guys one year, and then that following year, 2 years later,
Yeah.
he took out a whole city.
Yeah.
He took out the whole city of New York.
I want to clarify. He had help from Donald Trump.
That's true. That's true. Our savior, Donald Trump.
And a homeless woman with pigeons.
So is this, in your experience babysitting, did they have an answering machine?
My family would have in the years you're talking about.
Because then it's like, oh, they could just leave a message. Who cares?
Probably. Yeah.
But back then, maybe the babysitter needed to write down the message.
Yeah. Also, as a culture, we've
Kids
kind
were
of
a lot more respectable back then, too.
I was about to
This
say,
lady was also not a child.
We've gotten a lot more paranoid about kids over time, right? Like, kids used to be feral.
Well, it's because of guns.
You think so?
No, I just wanted to say that.
It's because of all the murderers.
Yeah, all the murderers.
They've always been there. I wonder what's changed.
Very, very.
Why are we getting so soft? But yeah, fire that babysitter. She shouldn't be giving out that kind of information for
Unless
free.
it was in her contract. He's a detective. Maybe he wanted the phone answer.
Yeah. My contract requires that I let you know that they're not here.
Babysitter and secretary.
Yeah. I think I've run out of things from this movie that stuck out to me. Actually, sorry, the very first note that I wrote down.
So you did not run
I
out.
got this last one.
Yep.
The very first note that I wrote down, when we're kind of like getting this set up and we're seeing all the windows before we get to Jimmy John. I wrote down, Sesame Street's come a long way. Because like almost all those shots really look like they were Sesame Street. That's all I had. That's all I got. That's enough of my dumb observations.
So a couple things I just wanted to see if you guys had any, if there was any connections to. This movie also dealt with a lot about paranoia.
Yeah.
And
conspiracy theory.
Yeah. So I read just a couple different articles on this movie and stuff, break it down. And a lot of the reoccurring themes was the fact that like coming post-war, especially with the Soviets and stuff like that, there was a lot of this paranoia vibe coming out of that whole season of life. And I feel like that's the only connection I could make between this and like the previous wars that happened before this movie came out, of just as ideas like society in general, as a society, culture was living pretty paranoid of like who's listening, who's watching, are they allowed to be watching, do they know we're watching, do they know I'm not like so just like that was paranoia, not just within the sense of our own personal life, but in the sense of Big Brother, is someone out there watching, for my best half, like LB Jeffries was not watching for any of their best interests of the people in the village, but he ended up saving no one's lives except for his own, but he did put away a criminal.
Yeah.
But just idea like, is Big Brother watching? So paranoia was a big theme throughout this movie. I just didn't know if there was any other paranoia thoughts that you guys had.
Yeah, I looked it up because I always associate like the Cold War paranoia with the 80s. But, looking it up, Cuban Missile Crisis was 62. The Berlin blockade was 48 to 49. Korean War was 1950 to 53. McCarthy era was the 40s and 50s. So yeah, this is right in fever pitch about commies.
Yeah.
It is interesting though that despite that, nothing of his paranoia has anything to do with spies.
Right.
I don't know. I think this would have been a better movie if it's like he's got cabin fever. He's trying to invent something more exciting
Right.
than what's actually
and
happening.
nothing actually ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would have. I thought that
I would have enjoyed that ending just as well.
overall.
But yeah, that was just the one other big theme that I got. There was just paranoia, self-doubt of like, will they, won't they? Did they,
Yeah.
didn't they?
Mm-hmm.
And
Are they? Aren't they?
going into the legal idea of like privacy and monitoring? You know, like
Yeah.
is any of this movie a commentary on the importance of having people listen and watch us and monitoring us? You know, like,
Imagine you
because
should-
obviously, like they caught a criminal,
Yeah.
so it was his. Going back to your question, was his actions justified, and does that justify a Big Brother type mentality of us all being monitored and watched?
I wonder if any of the supporters of the U.S. Patriot Act appealed to Rear Window in their argumentation at all, because the movie is kind of to some degree, in defense of voyeurism.
At the end,
I don't think it draws a claim. I don't see it as
Well, because
taking
they
a
catch the
side.
bad guy is what I mean.
but
I still
up
don't
in-
think that makes it justifiable, and
Right.
I don't think the movie positions it as justifiable.
right. I don't think it's glorified. I don't think it's glorified at all.
It's
In the only moment where it could have been justified is that very moment at the end.
Mhm.
The whole other time, there is no one. Well, I can't say no. For the most part, you're watching Jimmy Stewart's character convince people
Yeah.
of his, whether it's valid or invalid
His
paranoia.
psychosis.
And the whole time they're like, no, like I don't think this glorifies it all, but this one definitely just ends optimistically versus pessimistically.
Yeah. The remake in the 1990s, is it set in the 50s or in the 90s?
Let me check real quick. I think
Because if it's set in the 90s, I'm curious how they make.
modern remake of Rear Window, in which the lead character is paralyzed and lives in a high-tech home filled with assistive technology.
Interesting.
It came out in 1998. So
Definitely want to watch that. I've
that's
been on a
the
trip of
era
watching
of the
bad
internet.
movies.
and the image
The
of
remake
movie,
of Psycho has Vince Vaughn in it. It's also supposed to be very bad.
and the
Love
image
it.
of the movie
And Hatch,
has like the digital computer screen filter over it. Like, you know what I mean? Like not Matrix, but like
Gross.
look like you're looking on an old computer monitor. So yeah, so it's modernized.
Well,
Um,
for then.
have you guys ever seen the movie Disturbia? Shia LaBeouf, going back to another Shia LaBeouf
No.
movie.
No.
Shia LaBeouf is under house arrest for doing just some stupid prank stuff.
Yeah.
He's a teenager. And so he spends a lot of his time looking out the window, observing his neighbors. Not to the extent of this movie. And this movie pretty much takes place after observing one thing versus just the whole movie of him observing something. But it's essentially him realizing that his neighbor has also murdered someone and has a whole house full of it. That one's very much a more horror thriller type suspense scary movie. That's where the song Disturbia by Rihanna came from.
That's where it came from.
Disturbia. Yeah, I think so.
Wow.
I think she wrote it for this.
It's also where the band Disturbed came from.
I don't know about that.
I just looked it up. It's true.
Disturbia was in 2007. Disturbia song,
Oh.
2008. So they were unrelated.
Nice.
I was incorrect about
Felt
that.
right, though.
But
Felt true.
I could have sworn the song was in the movie. Obviously, it wasn't. But just I saw there was a lot of similarities to
Rihanna in the movie.
capturing a murder just by being stuck in your house and
Mm.
having. But he was house arrest versus physically
Arrested.
incapacitated. So yeah, Disturbia. And I would recommend Disturbia is a great watch. So if you
Linked below.
if you want this movie a little bit more darker and scarier, watch Disturbia.
As all of the books and movies we mention, as many as we can, linked below through our Amazon affiliate link. Click that, watch it there, read it from there, and we'll get a little kickback. And that's a way that you can show your appreciation to what we're doing here, as well as signing up for our Subscribe Star. Also linked below. You get access to Godfather Part 3 and other movies coming up. Jeff, do we have any wrap-up questions to get to?
Yeah, I think so. Just like every other week. All right. Would you guys recommend this movie?
Yeah, I would.
Absolutely.
I liked it.
I absolutely would.
My first time watching it.
And only like an hour 50. That's an easy watch. I was
Yeah.
surprised when I saw it was so short.
I watched the first 2/3 at double speed because I didn't schedule my day well.
the only music in this movie that wasn't provided by the piano player was the very opening scene and the very ending scene.
Oh,
The
interesting.
rest of the music in the movie was provided by the pianists that live across the street.
The what?
Like
The pianist.
within the
Rapper.
movie was what he was playing?
There was no other cinematic music playing. Or did I interpret it incorrectly? Maybe I'm wrong with that. Fans, fact check me like you always do.
I remember a song playing when we were watching Miss Lonely Heart that was like, I see you and that means I love you. And like the lyrics were very like, it was voyeuristic, interesting.
Is that the one where she almost overdoses?
No, I think it was when she was like doing that pretend date. And the song was singing like, to see you is to love you. And because I see you, I love you. And it was very like, kind of like I'm watching you, creepy song.
Okay.
This movie actually was the inspiration for that song by The Police.
Oh.
Every movie.
Yes,
which people have walked down the aisle to.
It's such a weird song. And there's also the P. Diddy song. P. Diddy has a song very similar to that.
Probably has several.
I can't. No, you're thinking of R. Kelly. You're thinking of R. Kelly. But P. Diddy has a song that's very similar to like, I'll be watching you type of thing.
Neat. Linked below.
So yeah, I may be wrong, but for the most part, I thought it was like musically supported by the piano player. Maybe I interpreted that wrong, but rated PG. Would you guys change the rating?
No,
I think it's fine.
Yeah.
Some of those kisses were a little saucy for my taste.
Yeah,
but PG's fine.
Yeah, there's no nudity. Well, there's no nudity. There's a full back.
Yeah, there is.
Full shown back of
his torso.
A little bit of booty.
Yeah.
But
and a lot of dancing.
But
not bad dancing though. Like very nice,
violence,
tasteful dancing
outside of the strangulation at the end.
Yeah, a lot of insinuated sex.
Yes, but yeah, no worse than what you'd see on like a 40-minute sitcom show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, has it aged well?
I think it's aged really well.
Oh yeah.
In fact, I'd say this I feel aged better than On the Waterfront.
I would agree with that.
And they were made the same year. One was black and white.
They were released the same year.
This one feels like it was originally black and white and then retroactively added color to it. Also, I will say Doyle's hair is way too black and then the killer's hair is way too white. If those felt bad.
Okay. I didn't pick up on that.
But,
so it seems like you have a thing with black and white things.
Yeah.
You think it's aged well? Do you like...
Yeah. I think the commentary is even stronger today than it was then. I mean, I think like Hitchcock, like I said, picked up on a theme and that theme has only gotten stronger.
Hitchcock, having only seen 2 of his movies so far, this one having more, if I remember back from Psycho, like this one having more of a relevant commentary of our current modern day.
Yeah.
Like I'd be curious to see, like, I'd like to talk to Alfred Hitchcock today. I mean, he passed in 1980, but I'd like to talk to him just to see, like, would he change anything to a movie like this? Like, when he made this 30 years prior to his death, did his perspective change when it came to these topics that we've talked about? And like, did he experience anything differently? And, and then how much of this came from personal experience? Like him being someone who's worked behind screen, behind cameras his whole life, his whole adult life. Like,
how many years later did he die?
This movie came out in 1954. He died in 1980.
Wow. Okay. So by 1980, the world had still changed a lot.
He was born in 1899, though. So he's from the 1800s. That's fascinating. I love that. Old people are cool. Last but not least, would this be on your personal top 250, Nelson?
I think so.
Yeah.
Cassie?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely make sure this is in my top 250. This was a very enjoyable movie.
It's a kind of like unchallenging popcorn flick, but at the same time, there's a lot of depth there if you're looking for it.
And Cassie is the only person here that's watched it multiple times. You pick up more with every viewing.
Yeah.
And there's more depth that you're getting with every pass.
Well, it's a different thing too when you're watching a movie and taking notes. And like you really do pick up on a lot more when you do that.
That's true. But yeah, I very much enjoyed this movie. And yeah, I'm excited to eventually watch the 98 TV movie.
What's next for us, Jeff?
Oh my goodness. Well, this movie was the first of our Spooktober.
That's right.
So next week's episode is another Stanley Kubrick film.
That's right. So last year we opened with a Hitchcock and a Kubrick.
Yes.
For our Spooktober, and we decided that we're going to revisit that. So we did Rear Window.
We're very close to duplicating our whole month of October.
Yeah. So we've got Rear Window just now. Next week we've got The Shining, which is a nice spooky Kubrick movie. One. And then the week after.
Seven,
which
is a little off.
That doesn't really match up with last year.
Pattern. But then
we do Aliens.
Yes.
Which is the second of Alien.
Actually, we have 5 movies in October. We're also doing Coco.
That's right,
Ooh.
with Sarah Taylor.
With Sarah Taylor. Sarah Taylor's
Coming back for another Pixar movie.
Yeah, for another Halloween Spooktober month. So it's kind of cool that we're able to, within the top 250, we're able to repeat this pattern at least twice.
But if you don't want to wait a week to find out our feelings about another movie, right now, go to our Subscribe Star link below, and you can find out our opinions on The Godfather Part 3, which Jeff and I, at time of recording this, have not yet seen or discussed.
Nope. I have not watched it yet.
But I already have...
recording in 2 days.
I've got thoughts on where I think it's going.
Yeah.
And then there's things that we weren't able to discuss in the first 2 episodes that, out of the books and that kind of stuff. Like, I've got thoughts on The Godfather.
You read the book. So
I listened.
You listened to the book. So that counts. So yeah, so we've got a fun month of October. Happy 1-year anniversary, Nelson.
Thank you.
Cassie, thank you for joining us for a 1-year anniversary.
Glad to be here.
It's been a fun year.
It's been good. So
if you haven't already, go back and listen to our 1-year anniversary bonus episode from Friday.
Yep. We've launched that Subscribe Star now. And we would
and man, is it cooking. Those numbers are looking great, I hope.
Way better than what they were a month ago. We'd really appreciate your support. If you really enjoy this show, we've tried to make our tiers as reasonable and as
singular.
As reasonable as possible, and just
$1,000 a week, guys. That's all we're asking.
Yeah, that comes down to 4 easy payments of $1,000 every month.
Yeah.
and that just gets us
months that have 5 weeks. You get a free week.
Well, we would love your support, and we have goals. This is not the last of us launching new things. We've got plenty more goals and adventures we want to go on here in the future, and this is the start of that.
Yeah, $5 a month. $5 a month.
It gets you access to everything else, except the merch obviously has additional cost to it, but there will be other merch sometimes that may have exclusive pre-release to our subscribers. Like you guys will get first notice on things.
Yep.
Things that we're not even discussing yet that are in the works as well.
We'll be letting you know ahead of time what episodes are coming up. We'll value your input ahead of time. We'll read your comments.
We want Subscribe Star guests to maybe even be guests on episodes.
That's right.
You guys would be essentially the first as guests to come on episodes that you and I don't have personal interaction with.
And as we mentioned in our bonus episode, once we hit our break-even point, 1/10 of every dollar after that is going to be going to a different charity each month, which our subscribers get to vote on what charity receives that.
ReddickHousehold.com.
Nelson Hicks Empty Pocket Fund.
Yeah. No, really
both
good.
Of them. Both of those.
Really are great, well-deserving programs.
That's right.
We won't say this every episode. Just
we will.
As we launch. Well, we won't say it
every single time.
We would
give us your money, folks. That's going to make you happier. It's going to make us happier.
It'll make for more enjoyable content.
That's right.
I will be better if you pay me. Is what I'm saying.
All right. We love you. Bye.
Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we did.
If you found value in what we discussed today, please consider leaving us a rating and review. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode.
If you have any feedback or suggestions, we would love to hear from you.
That's right. Tell us why we're wrong.
If you want even more content and ways to engage with us and each other, check out our Subscribe Star page.
By supporting us there, you'll get access to exclusive bonus content and help us continue to create high-quality episodes, as well as help pay for our future plans. Links to our social media, merchandise, and Subscribe Star are in the show notes.